is happening, Blades? And welcome back to the Blades Ramble with another fantastic guest today. And I'm really excited for this one. It's the championship guru that we're all, say, unfortunately familiar with due to our time in the champ. We'd much rather be a Premier League team. But if there's ever a silver lining to being in the championship, it's that we get coverage from the fantastic Benjamin Bloom. Welcome to the Blades Ramble, Ben.
People tell me this. I don't believe them. Like the Leeds fans are going, "Oh, we got relegated. The only good thing is that we can talk to you again." They don't want to see me. No one wants to see me. If you're Sheffield United or Leeds or any of those kind of big clubs that end up in the Championship, you don't want to be seeing me, do you?
You're a silver lining to what is a sad time for the club. So, thank you for joining us, Ben. Really appreciate it, mate. Tell us a bit about you. What's your background? Appreciating you don't hide the fact that you're a big Ipswich fan, but you're somehow able to remain impartial when discussing your team. And so, what's your background? How did it become a championship-based channel that you do?
Well, so I founded the Blue Monday podcast, which is an Ipswich Town. I've always kind of been creative, and like yourself doing this, you can probably relate to that. I founded that podcast, and I'll try and do the long story short. We were doing audio. Everything then started to go to YouTube and, visual. Vlogs started happening. So we said, okay, someone needs to do some vlogs. We put an advert out. A lad agreed to do it. And then just before the season started, he said, "Oh, I don't really want to." And it was honestly, someone better blimmin' do it. So off I went to Charlton versus Ipswich. It was pre-season friendly, and Ipswich lost 6-1 to League One Charlton. And as you've probably learned on YouTube, I learned straight away, there's nothing like losing 6-1 to get some views, I tell you. So I did a vlog. It was dreadful, absolutely awful. I was looking at the wrong place. I said every 5 seconds, but you live, you learn. And we started to do the vlogs and whatnot with Ipswich, and as well, Ipswich got relegated the same season you boys got promoted, and it was just a bit of a call because I'd already done some other vlogs of games that didn't involve Ipswich, and we kept the Blue Monday podcast going, and that sort of partner Richard now basically runs that alongside me, and we now had the choice, and it was okay. We'll focus on the Championship. We've made lots of friends, really enjoy it. And there is the simple, you'll have it as well with the numbers, that there's just more interest in the Championship than League One. I don't want to sound like I'm chasing the views, but you'll find with Sheffield United that you'll get more traction when they're in the Premier League than they're in the Championship. But I've rambled on long enough with that answer.
That's what it's about, Ben. Don't you worry about that. But and I suppose it's the same, that rather than just solely being an Ipswich channel, that there's more scope for growth in a Championship channel, isn't there? Because obviously it's the wider variety of clubs, and you'll get, catch them in that net, I suppose. So when did you decide to make the? I assume, and this is purely an assumption because I know you're a musician as well. So are you YouTube full time now? Would you say that's your main source of?
No, it's not my main. It's as you'll well know. I've already said that about 3 times in this interview, but as you'll well know, it's pretty hard work. There's this idea that in the kind of content creation world that you don't have to have 1 million subscribers and live off the ad revenue, but if you've got a hardcore base that are really supportive and might be prepared to get involved in a YouTube membership or a Patreon subscription, that can sustain you. But it's fantastic. It's really good. It's not my full-time thing. I was producing on the ITV EFL show last year, so that that became an opportunity that, and I write for Tribal Football as well, but I still go and do some gigs and do some piano teaching and whatnot along this. So I kind of like it that way as well. Yeah. But I'd love to have 100,000 subscribers and it be the full time. But also, I love the Championship, and I understand that. And I've been there. I've been asked, "Can you write about Paul Pogba again?" What have we got to say about Paul Pogba? He's not going to sign his contract. I've already done 8 pieces on that. But that's the deal. I don't want to do that. I'd rather talk about Sheffield United and Paul Heckingbottom when they're there. I'd rather talk about Rotherham. Do you know what I mean? So
Wow.
yeah, it's that's the deal. I've too long studying the Championship now. God knows what I'll do if Ipswich ever get promoted to the Premier League, but we'll leave that to the Blue Monday guys.
Yeah, that's true, but it might happen. And in terms of your subscriber count, I think you're around 30,000, is it, at the minute?
Oh, it's
Maybe
mental,
higher.
isn't it? How many does Bramall Lane hold?
Yeah, about as many as your subscribers, to be honest. So
insane, isn't it? Yeah, brilliant.
It's crazy, but fantastic. And congratulations to you, mate, for building such a strong, brand. How on earth do you keep up with every club? Because I can only speak from a Sheffield United perspective, but I also see the other feedback that you get from other clubs. You are on top of the styles and patterns of play. You know the players that benefit and maybe are questionable in the side. You know the manager's background and sort of how they may fit with the system and the club. How do you keep up with it all? Because it must be a huge task to take on to get up to the speed with everything.
That's really kind of you to suggest, but the answer with all humility is you can't. You can't really be up with all 24 clubs. You can do your best to know as much as you can, and you need to have the humility to say, if I'm speaking to you, you know more about Sheffield United than I do. You watch them every week. You know the mood. You know exactly what subs the manager's going to make before he makes them. You know everything. I don't. I'm looking from the outside in. But what we try and do is we try and embrace that view. We say, okay, you know more than me, but I'll give you the view as a neutral. And I think that's kind of become the thing on the channel, that I'll be able to go and jump in Bramall Lane. Okay, I might take in some of your content, or the lads at Sheffield United Way or Blades Pods. You've got loads, haven't you? Sure, and view before I go. Literally driving up to the game, I'll stick all of them on and work out what's going on. And I guess a little bit after doing it for 3-4, especially with someone like Sheffield United, where there was a promotion not just a promotion, but a really excellent narrative and story around it. You learn a lot about the club and chatting to the fans and whatnot. So I'd never claim to be across everybody. You can't be, but we try our best to give every team as much respect as they deserve, and know as much as we can. And we'll never know as much as the true fans like yourself.
Yeah, no, but as I say, you certainly, you can tell you do your research, and it's always really sort of informative, particularly for me not knowing about as in depth about the other teams as yourself. What sort of tactical trends and changes have you seen over the last couple of years? Because for me, I'm much more of a layman. I think it's always been fascinating to me to see the sort of trendy trends that come in with tactics and things. 3 at the back was very much in vogue at one point. It looks like there's a lot more 4 at the back now. It's certainly in the Championship. I don't know whether you found the same, but do you see patterns to that and sort of waves of tactical tweaks and changes?
It's a great question. And before I forget to ask you, at the end of, can you come back and answer me why one of the greatest tactical innovations I've ever seen at your club didn't go mainstream? No one does the centre-back and the centre-back, the centre midfielder, and they're all going to rotate way up the pitch on the wing. I thought, that's amazing. That's brilliant. So you can answer me why. Maybe it's just too hard to coach, but you can answer me why that is when I've answered. But so look, it always comes down from the top, and I don't want to turn into Sam Allardyce, but he does have a point that it's all well and good looking at Pep Guardiola, who's probably the best, football manager ever, or there's going to be an argument, and trying to emulate that. But if you don't have the players to emulate that, it's foolhardy to do so, isn't it? We've already seen in the Championship. You won't have seen it now because you're up in the big league, but we've already seen Leicester. They do it slightly differently than Southampton, but the fullback comes into central midfield. Leicester spread 3 across and 1. The left fullback comes in front. Southampton go wide with 2, and then both fullbacks kind of come into the middle. So that's what you're trying to see. And half of your listeners will say, that's great. Isn't it great to see innovation? And the other half will say, isn't that overcomplicating it? It's the championship.
Yeah.
And neither of them are right. Neither of them are wrong. We'll see. But that's the innovation. Obviously, again, you can counter that by saying, yeah, nice one. They're 2 year one parachute teams with Walker Peters and Pereira doing the job. And, can Preston afford can Preston afford a fullback to come into central midfield? But yeah, can you answer my question? Why did the Wilder innovation not go through the wider game? Because it was sensational, wasn't it?
I mean, this absolutely sensational. Best football I've ever seen us play. But I can only, I mean, the lazy answer is that we got found out and people worked out how to counter it, and they would sort of utilize isolators on the break and things of that nature. But I honestly don't know. I think it is a very unique way to play. And Jack O'Connell, we never replaced Jack O'Connell.
So sad that, isn't it? That I thought he was going to be in the England squad.
I think he was on the verge of it then, to be fair, at the time. And when he went down injured, there was only Chris Basham then that could overlap, and our replacement left centre-back, Ethan Ampadu, and whoever it might have been, Jack Robinson later on, they couldn't get up and down like we needed them to. So we all went down one side. It became very predictable. And that was the start of our unravelling and one of many reasons why we plummeted that season. But Eki's come in and adapted it somewhat. We no longer have the overlapping centre-backs, but Anel Ahmedhodzic is more of an underlapping centre-back. So you'll have seen in the championship last year.
Great fun, that guy, isn't he?
Yeah. So good. He's not been able to get us forward as much this season for obvious reasons, but
go figure.
Exactly. And we've still got Jack Robinson, who I'm not a massive fan of personally, and that's only my opinion, but he's an okay defender. And when there's 3 of them, he's all right and he's fairly solid. And I suppose that's what we're settling for in the Premier League rather than that attacking flair. So whether we look to improve on that position going forward, I don't know. But something you mentioned were quite interesting, that Leicester have adapted their pattern and they now shift their left full back inside. Well, we've benefited from that because we've taken Luke Thomas from Leicester because he no longer fits into their system. And I think he's a superb addition for us at left wing back.
Right.
So
great point.
Yeah, it's something that, because they're doing the experimental tactics or the new wave of tactics, if you like, we've actually benefited from that because we've got a good young player who's got Premier League experience and hopefully is an upgrade on Larouci, who not turned out to be the best signing in my eyes. So you also touched slightly on parachute payments. It's an interesting one for me, this, and I don't want to get too bogged down in it because I think you could go down a rabbit hole with it a little bit, but I think it gives an unfair advantage, obviously, to the Premier League sides coming down. Is the league in trouble? Is the Championship in trouble because the finances are just unsustainable? The money that some owners try and throw at it to get up, or even chasing the dream of that absolute jackpot. Is the Championship in trouble in terms of, does financial fair play help in any way?
I mean, yeah, without us now going back and forth debating it for the next 40 minutes, it's a hard one to encapsulate. I agree with your broad sentiment that it's unsustainable, but yet it always seems to sustain because someone will always push a bit harder, and football clubs are just like cockroaches sometimes. So the thing that will, and this is an economics conversation rather than a football conversation, the thing that will make it crash is that the Premier League TV money has, for what, you tell me, 20 years now gone up every single deal. So the thing that is going to make it really on an unsound footing is the time, which surely must come in the end. No business, no, even in biology, you have population crashes that it drops off. So that would be the thing that destroys it. You're right on the one hand that parachute payments give clubs an unfair advantage. Yeah, I can't say that that's wrong. But if you roll that back one stage, the thing that is unfair is the word, but the thing that's the problem is the fact that Sheffield United in the Championship with no parachute payments get £7 million TV money. Sheffield United this season in the Premier League will get £100 million TV money, and they're essentially where are Blades now, like 17th, and they were second, so they're like five places away in the pyramid. Yet we're talking about a factor of 12, isn't it? X12. Nice. That's the issue, and I understand why you would attempt to soften the blow. And the new argument with it all is you see Leicester and Southampton come down, and I've literally just heard the Leeds chief exec say players basically refuse now to play in the Championship. They just don't want to play in the Championship. However, Ahmed Odzic, if you were to come down, he would be the one. You've just taken Gus Hamer and Cameron Archer. You had Sander Berger, who you managed to get a season out of, or 2 seasons out of in the Championship. So you now have this argument that Southampton have come down, and I don't know what the number. It's something like they raised 130 million quid in transfer fees. So all the Coventry and Bristol City fans say, well, why do you need a parachute payment then?
Exactly right. They've got the assets to sell to make them balance the books, haven't they, essentially?
Jimmy, the difference is that Leicester and Southampton were up in the Premier League for years and years and years. And when a team that's only been up a couple of years comes down, they don't have Maddison, Barnes, Tielemans, Ward-Prowse, Livramento. They haven't accrued all those assets. So it's an absolute mess. I would, and I'm not a socialist, but in the socialist sense of the word, the TV money should be cascaded down on I don't know what the correct word is. Again, I'm not an economist, on a sliding scale, rather than this lot get 100 million, these 3 get 45 million, these 3 get 35 million on year 2, everyone else gets 7 million, etc. It needs to cascade a bit better, but you really think Premier League clubs are going to vote for that? Of course they're not. So, and then we're into a conversation about an independent regulator, and we're into politics, and no one wants to hear about that.
Back to football. Let's get back to football. So,
sorry.
No, you're okay, mate. I asked the question, so I appreciate your answer. Who are your dark horses in the Championship this year? I'm not saying necessarily to get promoted, but who do you think is going to go really well and have sort of gone under the radar a little bit? Because I've got one.
Can I hear yours?
Birmingham.
Okay. Yeah.
I like Birmingham's business. I think they've been really shrewd in a lot of their moves. I know they've spent a bit of money, but I think they've tied up some good deals, and I still like to keep an eye on Championship, and I think they'll go well this year. I think they've an outside chance of the playoffs, to be honest.
And if you wanted to hear from Birmingham City manager John Eustace, you can do on the Championship Check-In podcast with myself and Sam Parkin last night. That was a very dumb luck bit of time in getting him the days in the news. So, dark horse, I don't think I can beat Birmingham as an answer there, because obviously I can't say any of the parachute teams. They're not dark horses because they've got that nice financial advantage. Coventry, you can't say is a dark horse, and hopefully we'll get to talk about Gus Hamer in a few minutes. But they've raised money brilliantly, so I can't call them a dark horse. No, I can't beat Birmingham as an answer. I think you've nailed that.
I mean, Preston are going well, aren't they? They've started very well, but I can't see them sustaining it, if I'm honest. And maybe I'm writing them off too early.
No, I mean, you're not writing them off. I think it's football fans get very, very emotional. You say something very reasonable about Preston, and all of a sudden you've got an agenda against them, and you've mortally offended them. Yeah, exactly. But right, Preston have got way less resource, way less squad depth. They've had a brilliant start. We'd all love to see them, hang in there. That'd be great for the league, wouldn't it? But obviously, it's going to be very, very, very tricky for them.
Yeah, and I were coming to it anyway, and you've sort of alluded to it. 2 Championship standouts, both over the last couple of seasons, really. Now signed for the Blades. I mean, obviously we lost Illiman and we lost Sander, but I think if you're going to replace them, you can't get much better than Gus Hamer and Cameron Archer. You'll obviously have seen an awful lot of them, then probably more than me in the Championship, although I'm a bit of a Cameron Archer fanboy. Do you think they've got the ability to step up to the Premier League?
So Yeah, you've literally just opened up Pandora's box there, because the conversation is not about Hamer and Archer, because I judge them as championship players where they're the top of the top of the top. You're right. And this speaks to the broader point of this no man's land between the Premier League and the Championship and getting stuck in between. And I'm not plugging it, I promise. We do a round table on my Patreon, and we got a Blades fan.
Plug away.
We got a Blades fan on there, and he wasn't wrong. He said, but yeah, these are players that have starred in the Championship and might struggle in the Premier League. We don't know. And the funny thing was, there was a whole load of Championship fans who would all, without fail, probably swap any two players in their team for Archer and Hamer in the Championship. I really hope they do well, obviously, because they're young players and they've come through. I mean, it's a bit of a different for Archer because he's the loanee who's bounced down, but he's brilliant for Middlesbrough last season and Preston before. I don't know. It's going to be hard because they're, love you guys, but they're going to be in a team that's probably not going to win, or going to win between 7 and 12 games. You win 12 games, you're laughing this season, and probably not have.
Take 12 now.
Oh, God, well, 36 points, you survived, aren't you?
Yeah. I think so this year.
It's not going to have as many shots, not going to have as much possession, but I think they're good players. Hamer is he's a different beast, because in the Championship, he's a bit like Buendia. He could actually control a game by himself. And I suppose you could have leveled the same thing at. I mean, Berger was a bit different because he was a kind of slick, linked together player. He's not going to just take the game by himself that a Buendia or a Hamer did. Hamer, I saw on he must have only played one game for Coventry. I was there at Leicester. And I don't know if you watched it on TV, for about 15 minutes after half time, I get to a point where I'm enjoying a player so much, I'm just laughing. And there was one point where he gets played in and like Leicester are double marking him and he's in a horrible position. And he literally just bumps one of the players off, 2 touches, turns out and switches the play. And you're just like, yeah, this isn't fair. You need to go and play in the Premier League, mate. This is not,
some players.
This is not gonna work. So what is your take?
I think both players are capable of staying in the Premier League. I think they're ready for the step up. I hope they prove it with United. The problem is if we get relegated, Villa have got an obligation to buy back Cameron Archer, so he doesn't come down with us.
And is that, Jimmy, is that for the same fee that you've paid for him? We get your money back?
Touch less. So it's like we're paying a minimal loan fee, really. But if we stay up, there's a significant. They've still got to buy back, but it's a significant profit to United. So
if he goes and bangs in 15 goals for
exactly. Yeah, they'll take him back, but we'll have made some money from it. So I'm just, the only thing is, if the worst happens, I think we need to keep Gus Hamer. We've got him in a 4-year deal, probably +1, because we like to include that. You can build a Championship team around Gus Hamer, as you know, and I think he would be the one player that I think it's probably. And I love Cameron Archer, and I've banged on about him for the last 18 months. But I would say, just because of the deal we've got him on, Gus Hamer's probably our best signing this season. The fact that
Jimmy, what is your reaction then? Sorry to interrupt. To Angus Kinnear, the Leeds chief exec, saying that is getting harder and harder to do. So the key example is Norwich in 2021, the COVID season, where they kept Buendia and he just took the mick, didn't he? And that was your guarantee of promotion back if you could keep him fit. But Angus Kinnear says today with Nonto and Sinistera, it's just impossible to keep him. I quote, they'll crawl over broken glass to leave. What is to stop Gus Hamer if you guys go down from saying, I'm not playing in the Championship?
Nothing, because contractually, he has to play. I mean, you'll fine him if he doesn't turn up for training. You can make him play the game, but he's not going to play to his full capacity if his head's not in it. And that's unfortunately where we are. I think we player power at the moment, and it needs to swing back, but I can't see how it's going to come back, because we were talking about this when the club were wondering what to do with Illiman and Dye. Best player I've ever seen in a Sheffield United shirt. And Marseille coming, his hometown club, and he was on the verge of signing a new contract with us. And then he's thought about it, slept on it, and woken up the next day and said, I just need to make my dream move. do we force the player to play for us in the Premier League? Is he going to give his best if we make him see out the last year of his contract? And it may come down to the individual. He may have reluctantly done it, and then there's a bit of a breakdown in relationship, but at least he plays. Or does he down tools and make it difficult like we see so many players doing now?
But it's difficult. And by the way, that's no judgment of, say, the character of Gus Hamer or Sinisterra at Leeds or Sarr at Watford or whoever. It's just the analogy is it's like having a Ferrari and then you have to move into a not very nice estate and you're just going to leave it out on the street and not drive it, and let it rot.
Of the championship.
Exactly. Yeah. Right.
Right. I've got some quick fire questions for you now.
You realise I don't do quick fire answers. I'll try and do my best.
That's all right. I may ask you to elaborate anyway. So,
okay.
I think I know the answer to this one. Favorite championship season ever?
18-19, the one you got promoted in. Yeah, amazing. And that takes a lot to say, considering I'm an Ipswich fan and Norwich were brilliant and won the title.
Yeah, absolutely. And Ipswich went down, didn't you, that year?
We were. Yeah,
sorry.
I'm too busy looking at Wilder and Bielsa and Farke and Lampard and it's so good, wasn't it?
Do you have a soft spot for? I'm not going to say the Blades, but any club that you cover in the Championship or you have covered in the past.
Don't have a soft spot for the clubs. I have a soft spot for the people. So yeah, plenty. So you get. It's weird because it's almost like you're this outsider coming in and affirming nice things about people's football club, and they just love to hear it. And I don't pander to anybody. If Sheffield United play awfully, I'll say Sheffield United played awfully, But any club I go to, and it happens at Millwall, at Leeds, at Sheffield United, that have all got reputations, for maybe having a vociferous fan base, let's just say. But yeah, you really warm to the people, and so nice at Sheffield United as well. I always get stopped and people say, I used to watch your videos when we got promoted. That was brilliant. Thanks for that. And you're like, thank you for talking about football. Great,
You were known as a Sheffield United good luck charm, weren't you, that season? Because every time you went to watch us for one of your vlogs, we seemed to win or we seemed to get a good result. So
it's just some incredible. I mean, that season I saw you leading 3-0 at Villa. Do you remember that? And they scored 3. And honestly, in that game, you're talking about that season, Billy Sharp scored one of the best movement-based hat tricks. People say to me, it's 3 tap-ins. And I'm like, you don't know football if you think that was straightforward what he did there. And I was at the Basham arriving game at Leeds as well. I was at your promotion again. I was against Ipswich, wasn't it? It's just some brilliant times. Yeah,
very good. Yeah, absolutely great memories. And like I say, you're always welcome at the Lane, Ben, as you know. So, this is a bit of a double barrel. Who's the best team in the Championship this year? And what is the best team you've ever seen in the Championship? Which club?
Oh, the best team in the Championship. It's so hard to say, Jimmy, because we're so early. Yeah. And with what we've said about transfer windows and parachute teams basically spending the first 6 weeks trading rather than playing, it's really, really difficult to say. I'd imagine it'll turn out to be Daniel Farke and Leeds, that if I can do a David Brent there, and that sounds like a winner though, doesn't it? To me, we'll see how it pans out. In the Championship, since we've been doing the channel, those 3 in 18-19, Bielsa, Farke, and Wilder. And funnily enough, I thought Bielsa's 18-19 team at Leeds was better than the one they got promoted, because they were just chaotic and just box office, and they could lose. I agree. Could lose.
So dangerous.
And they would, those games are just and let's be honest, all 3 of those, I watched Wilder's team and Farke's team. Every time they took a goal kick, they tried to score a goal.
Yeah,
they shifted the ball out and they just went on the attack. And it was, and I know people have a pop at Lampard. But his Derby team was really fun to watch as well. And they
had some players in there as well, though, didn't they? Derby
helps when you have Mount, Tamori, and Wilson, doesn't it?
Yeah, it does.
It really does. But if you're going to be a top international player for 15 years and make some contacts, you'd be mad not to lose them. But yeah, those 3 teams were absolutely brilliant. I'm a bit loath to say it because Fulham's wage bill was £90 million in 90 million in the Championship, right? Ask me. So the loss limit's 13 million. Okay, figure that out with a £90 million wage bill. But they were ridiculous with Mitrovic, Wilson, and Marco Silva managing them. And obviously, because you were there.
I remember Wolves doing it with Nuno. When Nuno came in at Wolves, they just spent a ton of money.
Jota, Bolly, and Neves.
Yeah, I know. And just walked it and played really, really good football as well. But this is a triple barrel question, so apologies because I'm going to ask you the best player in the league currently.
Okay.
The best ever player in the league. But I also want to know last year as well because there's a red and white striped player that I wondered if you'd include in that conversation.
Probably, if we count the chat, so I won't go back to say Tarabt QPR because I wasn't doing the channel there.
Merton, the usual answers.
Personally, I think the greatest ever Championship player, if you look at the numbers, is Kevin Phillips. If you look at what he did over multiple years with multiple clubs at the start and the end of his career, the promotions, the goals, and doing it, scoring the winner in the playoff final when he was virtually 40. I think he's the Championship GOAT. Although I do understand a Mitrovic or a Tarabt individual season might trump it. I think Grealish, in terms of since I've been watching, in terms of that you literally couldn't stop him and he'd get the ball out on the left wing and just literally just stop with his socks rolled down and just take the mick. And again, he had Abraham and Mings and whatever. The best player this season in there might turn out to be Winks for Leicester, who's basically an England central midfielder who, like Sander Berger for you guys, appears to have a silk dressing gown on, a cigar, doesn't need to sprint during a game and just still completes 100 touches and 100 passes. You're asking me about last season.
Basically, did you think Gilliman and Dye was the best player in the league last season? Because you don't have to. I do, but it's interesting to hear other fans' perspectives.
I mean, he was up there, wasn't he? I suppose the fact that Burnley were more a team and didn't have a standout go-to player. I think Gus Hamer was close. I think Chuba Akpom.
Yeah.
I'm not saying Chuba Akpom's as good a player as Njai is.
In terms of what a season they had. Yeah.
It's hard for me to debunk him being, in terms of the best performer over the season. In terms of an attacking threat and dribbling and just taking a team apart, probably, yeah. And the silly thing is that Sarr at Watford should be able to produce the output that Ndiaye did last season, but for whatever reasons,
not doing it.
No one's arguing who had a better season out of those two, but
that's true. Very true.
Yeah,
and they've ended up in the same place, which is crazy.
Is he in Marseille, Sarr?
I believe so. Yeah.
Is he?
Yeah, I'm sure. Yeah.
Couple of good dribblers there. Good. Yeah.
And if I have, no one will ever see this clip. But I think I've got that right. So this is a little bit of a mischievous question. Who struggles in the Championship this year?
I don't think we've got a basket case for a points deduction this year. I'm prepared to be wrong, but there's no, Reading have gone. Wigan were consistently ridiculous. Yeah. Blackpool's owners never spent anything, and go figure, they're all gone. This is so hard not to sound like I'm pandering because obviously you're leading me towards Sheffield Wednesday and Rotherham, aren't you? But
I don't mind Rotherham. Millers are okay.
No, they're I don't want to patronise them. They're a brilliantly, sensibly run club that understands their position in the hierarchy, but it's going to be hard for them.
They've just broken the transfer record with £1 million player,
twice.
haven't they? So yeah,
and ask me what Gus Hamer's signing on fee probably was. And,
exactly.
And I bet it beats Rotherham's all-time transfer record, doesn't it? So that's the pulls your fish. By that I mean the loyalty bonus that we paid across the term of his contract, rather than we're not naive enough to think a big lump sum tax-free goes into his bank account. But Sheffield Wednesday, the chaos is not good. I really like Cisco because I think he's a great guy, but I don't trust Mr. Chansiri as far as I can throw him. And I know a lot of Blades fans don't trust the Prince as well, and I get that. And you good owner, bad owner debate, etc. The problem for Rotherham and Sheffield Wednesday per se is that QPR I thought were going to be horrendous, and I think they're going to be all right. They've been all right the last few games. Huddersfield have not spent anything that doesn't smell good. They've not spent anything, and Warnock's so smart, and he's already
again.
But Jimmy, you say prickly. I say one of the cleverest messages in press conferences and using the media. Just a savant genius in that regard. And I'm already hearing things that I know is messaging that he's not happy with what he's got, and he's laying the foundation for if they struggle because they haven't bought players. That ain't, and I agree with him. Ain't his fault, is it? If he's been promised,
That's
budget.
Right.
Yeah. So you know the names. I actually think Cardiff are better than I thought they were. I didn't go to the game. I was doing Birmingham and Millwall, but the Ipswich fans said, "Oh yeah, Cardiff. They were all right." You just wonder whether if Aaron Ramsey is your star player, whether he can bang out 30 games. And but their transfer embargo is going to finish in January. So those are the names, and I take it there's no surprise in me saying any of those names to you.
No. So we're settling on Sheffield Wednesday, aren't we? Being bottom of the league.
That is atrocious.
Clip that, quote that. Benjamin Bloom says Wednesday.
No, you said that 100%.
Will Ipswich do it this season?
Do what?
Get promoted?
No, I don't think so. No, it's brilliant, and it's the best. We've been rubbish for like 20 years, and total wrong place, wrong time with the ITV. We got relegated when ITV Digital went bust, which would be the equivalent of Blades getting relegated and someone saying in October, "Oh, by the way, your parachute payments, you're not getting them."
Yeah.
And you go to administration, terrible downward spiral. And so I'm such a happy Ipswich fan. It's been the best sort of what you were experiencing in 2018-19, where you're like, hang on a minute, everything would have to go right for us to finish second. Everything's going right. We're brilliant. That happened. Obviously, it's a little bit different because yours was on the back of tactical innovation. I have to be a very self-aware Ipswich fan and say we spent the most money in League One. We were the parachute team that everybody had. I get it. I can't sit here and moan about the hierarchy in the Championship and not acknowledge that Ipswich's wage bill was, we think, when the numbers even significantly more than Sheffield Wednesday. So you have to be humble enough to acknowledge that. But I think Norwich are better than we all expected. I think Leeds, Leicester and Southampton are not, don't think any of them are going to finish outside the top six, are they? And then your Coventry have bridged the gap by selling Hamer and Gyökeres. Middlesbrough look like they are SHIT in the bed with the start. Yeah. So I don't know whether we can count them out already, but they certainly look a shadow of the team with Akpom, Archer and Giles.
We've done that before with Borough, though, haven't we? We've written them off before, and then
fair comment. Yeah.
But you're right; it's a tall order without those players in the team.
And Jimmy, I think as well. Love Ipswich, love Kieran McKenna, love this team, but you get 6 to 8 weeks advantage in the Championship if you've been winning and you keep your manager and you don't sign a ton of players. You're ahead of everybody, and we're really paying that off with a brilliant start at the moment. give me a text after Southampton away. I'm going on Tuesday the 19th, and if we turn up to Southampton and give them a really good game, and you're like, oh, okay, maybe there's something,
and you might
here,
start believing. Yeah.
Look, you can walk me into the playoff final in May with Ipswich in it against the team that's got their 3 best players suspended, and I ain't believing. So I'm a cynical glass half empty. It's self-preservation, isn't it? The fear of being disappointed. So yeah, there you go.
We're the same as Blades. My last quick fire one before I've got a final question for you, but my last quick fire one, and I don't know how it's crept in here, but any advice for a current club content creator considering diversifying into a wider league? So I've had some advice that I always want to continue with Blades Ramble, and it's my passion project, but a lot of people are sort of saying we'd like to hear more from you about different clubs and like a Premier League version of what you're doing, like Benjamin Bloom light, if you like, in the Premier League. But any advice for somebody that's looking at that sort of avenue as a potential thing to go down?
Well, I will happily, when I'm next driving to a game, talk to you on the phone for a long time about this and try and help as much as I can, would be the first thing, if I'm any kind of authority, which I don't consider myself. But so my advice would be is that you think of like a bungee rope that pulls you back in. So you're hardcore want to hear about Sheffield United, and that's perfectly reasonable for all of them. There's a lot of football fans that what's the right word? Because they're not any less worthy than you or I. If someone wants to go and just watch Sheffield United, go to 20 Sheffield United home games a season and hopefully see them win as many times, who am I to say that that's wrong? That's great. You're a great fan. Others want to hear about other teams. So it's a matter of just stepping out and then stepping back in, I guess. Yeah. Obviously, it won't go down well if you do what I do and you head off to Nottingham Forest versus Burnley next Monday. They're going to be like, what are you doing, Jimmy? But maybe preview oppositions and bring in other people. I know that's a very standard way of doing it. So you can either gently step out, or the other thing you can do, which is very bold and very brave, is you start a second channel using your...
That would be it.
The difficult thing is with the word Ramble is that, and I know Jim from the Football Ramble, but that brand is particularly associated somewhere else. So it's difficult for you to have the Premier League Ramble rather than the Blades Ramble. But probably one of those two things. But you're really well read. You're a nice fella. People will warm to you. So, and you know what it's like. You just put the work in. But yeah, one of those two things. And ask your audience. It's amazing the amount of times I just stick a poll up. Which game should I go to? And if only 2% of the audience want me to go to Bristol City, I'm not going to Bristol City as much as I'd love to go down there. So, no offense to Bristol City, great club, la la la.
Yeah, you don't hate them. You're not a gas head. It's one of them. So, thank you, Ben, and it's been brilliant having you on. I've really enjoyed it. But final question from me. It's not whether you think they will, but do you think Sheffield United have enough to stay in the Premier League?
I don't, but that doesn't mean that they can't stay up, because we saw... So, like, you would have looked at last season and you would have said, although last season was a bit of an outlier because Nottingham Forest are historically, they're kind of a big club, aren't they? Yeah. That had stagnated, and Fulham, as we've just said, had a Premier League wage budget in the Championship to go through. But I think those three stayed, not exclusively, because that would be disrespectful to Steve Cooper and Gary O'Neill and Marco Silva. But there was a contribution of other clubs being crap, wasn't it? And, Leeds was a silly mess, wasn't it? I don't know what happened with Brendan and Leicester, whether it stayed too long and they didn't go quickly enough. And Southampton are the example of, we talk about the Brighton model and the Brentford model. 10 years ago, it was the Leicester model and the Southampton model, and both in the Championship now. So, look, Southampton bought too many young players at one. Yeah. And And then Everton, I mean, you'll know way better than me about Everton because you saw them at the weekend. But if this was the Championship, I would be very confident Everton would be getting at least 6 points deducted at some point during the season if they have been found guilty of FFP and their lawyers aren't smart enough to procrastinate for too long. So and you know I love Sheffield United. You're hoping that someone does you a favour, and we're talking about Everton and Wolves, and that you can get those.
Luton, Burnley.
Yes, and we have the same conversation with Luton where, in theory, they're going to finish 20th, aren't they? And look, I live 10 minutes from Luton. In theory, they've got less money, less, and it's not that because it's a brilliant story that they've got there. Luton are not Sheffield United. Sheffield United are, have been in the Premier League very recently and, have this wonderful story history from, even we're going into the last, 2 centuries ago, etc.
Yeah.
Luton aren't that club and, should in theory finish 20th. So, I mean, as we're having this conversation, you can make an argument that you can get more points than 3 teams, but you have to. Bad teams don't even win against each other. And when I see Everton and Sheffield United drawing 2-2 and nobody winning, I'm like, come on, guys. Someone needs to take 3 points out of this game. And if you go to Everton and you draw the other end, it's like, what are we doing here? You're just giving everyone else the advantage. So I'd love to see it. The odds are against it, aren't they?
They are.
What's your take?
I'm ever the optimist with United. I try to be anyway. I try and be realistic, but I think we weren't ready for the start of the season. Our selling Sander and Illiman shouldn't have caught us off guard, but seemed to. We got Gus Hamer in quite quickly, but not in time for the Palace game. And he scored that great goal against Forest, but we still weren't up to speed.
Jimmy, that was poor, that Palace game, because I saw the lad up front play on loan for Derby last year in League One, and that's not fair on him and not fair on the fans for him to be starting the first game, is it?
No, and we brought in 3 development players, which is what they were, essentially. No big signings. Gus Hamer comes in so that's a missed opportunity against Palace. We weren't at full strength for Forest. And then we've done very well against Man City. Then we brought Cameron Archer in. And
by the way, so I'm not pandering, Jimmy. The noise from your cop when that goal went in against Man City, absolutely brilliant that. And I was watching on the iPad doing some work as well, and I'm like, whoa.
I know.
Brilliant. Absolutely brilliant.
He's always got Jaden Bogle. He's always
got problem was I tweeted it, and then 2 minutes later, Man City bloody scored.
I know.
But Man City good at football,
they're not bad. They're not bad. And then it were a very even game against Everton. I think we've got better all the time, and I'm a lot more confident now than I would have been at kick-off against Palace due to the personnel that we've brought in since, particularly McAtee as well coming back in, who we haven't even mentioned. So I think our best 11 is good enough to stay up. If they can stay fit, which is a big if, because we've got players like McBurney, who's quite injury-prone, and Nell's been injury-prone in the past. If they can stay fit, I give us every chance. I think we're in a mini league of 6. I think the rest of top 14, if you like, are on a different level to us, unfortunately. But I think Bournemouth, Wolves, Luton, Burnley, and Everton are in there with us.
I like Bournemouth's recruitment. There's some really good players. Yeah,
I do. It's just if they can gel it all together. They played well at Brentford. Could have won that game, actually, to be fair to them. So you could even take them out of that and say it's a 5. But if we can keep our players fit, I give us every chance because we've looked better every time. You have to beat
Luton, Burnley, Everton. You have to win the home games, don't you?
Yeah, we do. We do. And Everton was a missed opportunity. As much as they came to the lane just as up for it as we were, we should have beaten them. And Burnley almost did score in the last minute.
With the England goalie on absolute fire as well, yeah.
And that's the level, isn't it? That's the difference in levels. So, I think we can survive. I'm going to say that because I'm a Blade, but realistically, if I'm giving my honest opinion, I think
Jimmy,
we've a real
can I just ask you quickly? I know we're trying to wrap up, but about Heckingbottom, because there's this weird perception of him, and I don't really know where the football world kind of stands because he went into So he was good at Barnsley, really good actually. Went into
Yeah.
Leeds, and then I think that was where his reputation as who the hell is this guy, and then it's not very fair when you get replaced by Bielsa, who's like a de facto savant genius, is it?
Exactly, yeah.
That's going to make anybody look stupid, isn't it? And then even with Blades, there's still this idea that he's the under 23 guy that just got parachuted in. Answer me this, right? If for whatever reason that this scenario, Sheffield United stay up and he decides to part ways with Blades at the end of the season, and Paul Heckingbottom is an available manager, having kept Sheffield United up, where's he then pitched? Is he a top end Championship manager, or is he's still the guy that sucked at Leeds and is the under 23? Yeah. Does he just disappear into the background?
He seems to carry a bad smell with him, doesn't he, in terms of his reputation? And it's not fair at all. You look at the job that he's done with us, and I think Blades certainly recognised that now. That, listen, I think if he'd have come in straight after Wilder left instead of Jukanovic, I think he'd have not necessarily failed, but I don't think he'd have been accepted. So Slavisa Jukanovic came in, completely changed our style of play when all of our recruitment were based around the 3-5-2. And it just did not work at all. And we were sinking. I think we were 17th when Hecky came in. He reverted back to Wilder-esque. A lot of people say it's a carbon copy. It's not. He plays slightly differently to Wilder, as you'll have seen yourself. And then we've been on a great run. We pushed all the way. We got to 5th in the league and, fell at the hurdle with Forest, which could have gone either way.
No one was stopping Forest. There was something in the air there, wasn't there? Yeah.
No, I know, unfortunately. Bryce Samber's stud prevented us from getting through that night. But anyway, that's another story. And obviously we finished second last year. He's great at linking the youth team to the first team. He's worked on a budget. There's been obviously a lot of things going off in the background that he's just been so professional about. And I'm sure he's been frustrated at times, perhaps very frustrated. But what a job he's done for us. And we certainly recognise it from the inside. But you're right. I don't know why he's not better recognized. I think at Leeds, it was in that transitional period where they're trying to get rid of some of the big hitters, and he was asked to bring the youth players through. So results are going to be patchy. I don't know much about his time at Hibs, but he's done nothing but great things for us. And if he keeps us up for a season and then parts ways, then surely that's got to solidify him as at least in the mix for a Premier League manager's job, even if it's for a new.
Or Jimmy, team. If you're one of those parachute teams where you're like, right, we're terrified, we don't want to mess this up. We're going to stick this guy in because he's nice and chill and calm, and he took Sheffield United up in. And I mean this in the politest way, because the comparison, Wilder took you up in an utterly spectacular way, and this was just very. I don't know what the right word to use is. Just very steady, wasn't it?
Workmanlike, weren't it? It was
that's a better word.
Yeah. It was. It was consistent, and it was. Let's get this one done, and then tick this one off, and let's go. Let's keep grinding. But yeah, I don't think he gets the respect he deserves, Ben. To be honest, and hopefully now that we're in the biggest league on the biggest stage, people start to give him a little bit more respect. He's still the second favourite to be sacked, and I think, well,
who's the favourite?
Rob Edwards, I think. Oh no, sorry, Sean Dyche. Sean Dyche's favourite.
Interesting.
Yeah, and I think everybody lauds about Vinny Company. Listen, he did a great job last season. Fantastic transitioning that whole club in terms of the way they play and the players that he brought in, and they were a joy.
Jimmy, I was at the first game, and after about 20 minutes, I was like, "What is going on?
I know.
What am I seeing? This is strange."
Yeah, this isn't Burnley, but they've gone up, and he's not compromised their playing style. And to me, that shows a bit of naivety, really, in not being able to adapt. I'm not saying he won't adapt now that that's happened over the past few games, but.
Well, Jimmy, look at Stevie Cooper last year. I was at their game. They lost 4-0 to Leicester. They were rubbish. And he tweaked that, and he said, I'm staying up. And I think he's a great manager, Steve Cooper. Really, really could be one of the top 6, top 7 managers. I agree. But yeah, he did exactly as you're suggesting. And if Company's as smart as we all think he is, he'll probably do the same very quickly with 11 conceded in the first 3.
But he seems to be the darling of what a great job he's done at Burn, and he has for last season. He can ride that success for a little bit. I appreciate that, but Heckingbottom they lost 3-0 to City. We play City and we very nearly nick a point, and nobody hears about it. So, and that's maybe a reflection on the club because we're not a fashionable club, or it may be Heckingbottom that he's not the flavour of the month.
Jimmy, that's just the way news works, isn't it? And
yeah, it is.
On the one hand, you got this little quiet, unassuming guy. On the other hand, you got this giant kind of I am Sparta Premier League legend who speaks beautifully and looks great and prowls on the touchline. People just love. I remember in that first game, Jimmy, sorry to cut you off. It was him, and I love Danny Schofield. I think he's a great guy. He just ate him alive on the touchline with his presence. And I'm not saying that's right, but I get why the press loves showing slow-mos of him on the touchline yelling at people,
And is the heir apparent, isn't he, to Pep apparently, and all this sort of thing. So I get the love in, if you like, and I hope he does well. It's nothing personal against him. It's just an interesting thing to see where players with a professional playing background, particularly as successful as Company was, Hecky went under the radar a lot through his playing career, and it just doesn't get the same credence and doing.
No,
you could argue a very similar job, if not a slightly better one this season. So
I would bet you, because our manager at Ipswich is the proper hip, trendy, and he gets this very tired, and I hate it. Oh, best young manager in the country, which is very easy to say and utterly meaningless. It's just someone who's young, who's doing good. And if the Plymouth manager wins 5 games on the trot, he's the best young manager in the country. But I bet our manager gets more written about him than yours does this year. And you're in the big league. So. And the thing is as well with him, he worked for Man United. So you get that link as well. And who did Heck play for? Darlington?
Yeah, Bradford, Wednesday, Barnsley. Yeah, it's
you went way more Yorkshire when you said Barnsley then.
Barnsley. Yeah, that's true. Ben, thank you so much for joining me today. I've really enjoyed it. Yeah, really enjoyed it. And it's a bit of a coup for me to get the Championship Guru on the channel. And because we're trying to get to 5K before Christmas Day. That's
good
the
luck.
tagline. Yeah, I'm doing my best. We're just under 3K, so it's looking like a tall order, but the trajectory is right. So fingers crossed we can keep motoring and get there or get somewhere near. So yeah, thanks again for joining us, mate, and really appreciate it. And I'll speak to you soon.
Legend.
So how about that? Benjamin Bloom. How have I done that? I don't know. Less than a year on the platform and we've got Ben on. It's fantastic. So let us know what you think of that down in the comments. Another fantastic conversation. If you do like what we're doing, please do subscribe. As I've just sort of plugged again, we're trying to get to that 5K before Christmas Day, but only if you like what we're doing. So for now, come on, you red and white wizards. Up the blade. Ramble on.